Hi everyone, and welcome to 2022 Voices series for the Sociology of Media. I'm Ricky Spencer, and today I am very privileged to speak to someone from our diverse First Nations community, EJ Garrett. And I'm going to do something a bit different today. I'm going to let EJ tell us a little bit about himself and unpack his life and story through all the work that he's done and the projects he's working with. So without further ado, welcome EJ.
Thank you, Ricky. Really excited to be here. I'm on the lands of the Waka Waka people here in South Queensland. I'm a Wulli Wulli man myself, so our country is very close here.
Yeah.
I'm also a Darumbal man as well. Central Queensland, so salt water, fresh water. All my people come from, so which is great. Yeah. So but yeah, I'm a producer. I produce content. I produce media content for film, television, online. Yeah, it's really more or less really a storyteller.
And that's wonderful. That's what we love here, storytelling. So tell us a bit about yourself, EJ. Growing up, what drove you to this passion about storytelling? Was it something that came, you think, from within?
I think like we're all storytellers, and stories define everything around us, don't they? Like they define us, they define the world we engage with. So I sort of being amongst storytellers, it's just a natural thing for us. Being able to take your storytelling sort of experience and skills and put it into a structured format, like for television and film and other screens, it's a challenge, but it's very rewarding as well. I think we're all storytellers. I think I've just found a platform and a method that really fulfills me.
Interesting. And what's one of the things that drove you to pursue directing in this space that you are at the moment? Was there a particular time in your life that you saw, or the incident that kind of led you to think, okay, this is what I have to do?
I used to produce and present on a series called The Murray Minute. It was on. It used to screen across Queensland and North Queensland, and what it was is a 1 minute positive news story, interest story that we put on broadcast television, and it really. And my first sort of idea was that I really want to share to the world that we as blackfellas have this amazing society, this rich culture, these great individuals doing these great things. And then I realized, well, I think I'd rather be just telling our stories to each other. Of course, I think there's more fulfillment for me. So originally it was, I love the idea of getting our stories out there to mainstream audiences. And just recently I've learned that, no, it's really about us sharing our stories with each other as First Nations people and celebrating that and learning from that. I think that's been the big thing for me. Yeah.
And absolutely, especially the fact for many of us, like I'm from the stolen generation. So for me, trying to get identity and, having fractured identities growing up, what I love about when I read more about yourself is that hearing from our diverse community speak, it kind of resonates deeply with me. And I'm sure a lot of other people will feel the same, because we have so much happening in mainstream and white privilege and people speaking in media, that when it comes to First Nations people wanting to share stories and in a way that's very meaningful and personal, it can only really happen through people like yourselves who are very skilled in that, and we get something from it. So it's wonderful that you've really taken this journey. Is there something that within yourself that when you tell stories or you get people to you directing, that you feel that there's some other force of energy working behind that when you're telling a story? Do you ever get like goosebumps when you're hearing a person tell a story about something that's happened to them or that, and you feel, because I get that sometimes when I hear people speaking, and it's really strange. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I get it all the time.
Wow.
Every time, and it doesn't need to be in a formal way. I just love people. I just love hearing people's stories and their experiences. And I'm not much into small talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I drink a lot of tea,
Uh,
and I allow myself to have a lot of time and just sit with people and really just be, that real black collar way of listening.
yes.
There's no, don't have any sort of preemptive ideas what I need to say in that moment. It's just about allowing the talk just to come, and I find that approach to be very effective, especially in factual storytelling, where you can actually get to the heart of what a story is and what it's trying to say. And then you come with all this respect and admiration as well.
What about the notion of getting elders? Because we want to capture their lived experiences and hear their stories, so they kind of, for younger mobs coming up and understanding that. How has that journey been for you in getting older people to come on and speak and tell their stories?
I had my son on a traineeship with me. Yeah, he started as a school-based trainee and he worked for a couple of years with me. And we started this project called Elders Voices. It was just about for my son to build his skills, but for him to spend time with elders.
Yes,
because I've spent a lot of time with my elders. And what I've realized through that process is that his respect for old people and their experience is obvious now. Even though he doesn't work for me anymore, he still sits and yarns with old people, and he sits and listens. And when you talk about storytelling, we not only do we have a responsibility, we have an opportunity just to listen to those stories and be told. When we look at an elder, it's their young people that should be hearing their stories. Because that's who them stories are for.
Absolutely. And it's
primarily, and then there's the rest of us, that would love to hear these stories, but primarily it's the young people that belong to them elders.
And tell me, EJ, when you're capturing these wonderful lived experiences, how are you recording them? Are you putting them like on YouTube, or do you have a platform, or do they go through a production team for a particular channel? What's your sort of mode of producing?
So my content, I produce a number of my projects with NITV.
Oh, yay!
So I've got 2 documentaries that are screening on NITV at the moment. Let's
promote them over here. Everyone, tell us the first one.
The first one is called Always Black, Always Crack. I worked with Queensland-based comedian Angelina Hurley, who is one of the co-hosts of this great radio series that was on here in Brisbane called Wild Black Women.
Oh, yes.
It was just absolutely funny. And Angelina is an absolute genius when it comes to comedy. So she had this idea, let's talk about Murray humour. Let's get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
So I worked with her and as a producer. So we produced this 15-minute documentary with NITV, in partnership with NITV. Always Black, Always Crack. These 3 comedians in a studio talking about Murray humour. And what we did is we actually got them, we put them through games and activities and just get them to react. And then we asked them, and we sat down and had some sort of intimate conversations about Murray humour, and we got some really interesting points in that conversation. So it's a bit of a journey. there's peaks of laughter and humor, and then it drops down a bit serious and interesting, and then back up when you laugh. Yeah, so that's the first one. It's still streaming on NITV on demand, which is
right. And what we'll do, everyone who's listening at the moment, we'll put links to, because what I would love everyone to do is actually look at them again, make comments and share them, because it's very important we support our diverse community, and especially people like EJ, so that he gets known and that we really do promote our voices in every shape or form. So I'm very excited about rewatch. I think I might have seen that earlier on, but I'm going to rewatch that one again. And what's the other one?
It's called Rock Bottom in Rockhampton. This is a bit of a more serious piece. There's an emerging filmmaker, Shawn Leeway, who's had a really interesting experience through his life. And he talks about his experience as a drug dealer, as a drug addict, and now as a filmmaker and as a father. So over that 15 minutes, we take a journey and follow Shawn as he goes through, he remembers those experiences, and now him as a filmmaker. So we made that in partnership with NITV and Screen Queensland, our state agency here in Queensland. We're big supporters of those projects.
And I love that, because it's something I know for a lot of young boys especially need to see these sorts of lived experiences where they can understand and hear from what it's like. Because what I really get upset sometimes with media spaces is that they glorify things. You know, people see underbelly and they think, oh, I'm going to make so much money, I'm going to be cool, I'm going to have everyone. But the reality is that, you know, it doesn't happen like that, and more than likely, and obviously that story does sort of take us through that journey that he goes through and a realization. But one thing that it's connected him is obviously having that realization that who he is as a human being and his past and reconnection really does sort of bring him back to a space of healing. And I think it really does challenge, and hopefully people who have previously kind of put people down and looked at, put every Indigenous person in incarcerations into one sort of grouping, really does sort of understand the individual and how an individual can reflect, can change. And it's a very positive story. What sort of influenced you? How did that come about, EJ? What was it that drove you to his story, to Shawns Story?
Well, people approach me with their stories. I don't produce too many of my own stories. I think what they see in me is that I'm authentic and that I'm respectful and I'm trustworthy. So I facilitate a process. As a producer, I facilitate the process. I don't actually tell the story. I help them to tell their story. And that's probably where I've been finding the most success and the most fulfillment, is seeing these stories realized and the storytellers finding something about themselves. You know, like Shawn reconnected with his family up the Torres Straits as being a storyteller, you know, and watching that and helping Shawn to sort of to tell that story. That's a pretty amazing experience, you know.
And I like the fact with that is that men speaking about men's business in a way that's so, as you said, authentic, and also the fallacy of humanness that we all sometimes strive for, wanting to connect. We want to have, we're all looking for something, and sometimes it takes us down a pathway. But what really connects is that, as you said, that family, that sense of community, that sense of belonging. And if you kind of have that faith within yourself to find your connection, it will help. And it's for Shawn's case, it helped him heal. And how he is today is so much, you know, all his experiences have culminated, and here he is today, a strong man, has come through his life's journey. And, you know, that's wonderful that you're able to capture all those things. And now each has a reflection. But has anyone ever approached that they wanted to tell your story, to flip the camera back onto you and hear your story?
No, no, not as yet. That would, but you know, when like I share my story with other storytellers all the time, you know, it's really great. It helps to define who you are and where you're going. So I haven't been approached by anyone to tell my story.
Maybe that's big out there.
But I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be reluctant.
So tell me about your son. So your son was obviously very interested, similar to yourself. And what does he do now? What is he, a journalist or broadcaster? What does your son do?
No. We've just recently moved to our the town where I was born, here in Eidsvoll. It's a small town, population of about 600 people.
Wow.
So he does a couple of jobs around town, and like he's still like he's probably his big passion is animation. So he still plays around a bit of animation now and again, and
and that's the big thing I want to say too with media is we need to have more First Nation animation, something for the young ones to really capture and to get that. So I'm hoping that this can send a message out of people listening, young people listening, or even older people who have a skill in computers or have a passion for an idea, to really reach out to community to see, because this is what we do need. We need ways of connecting everybody together, and animation might be a way as well to get people to tell stories that young people or even some older people can relate to, and way of, you know, sending a message stick to other people. This is through our lived experiences, this is something that's happening. And so what about for you now, EJ? What does the future hold for you in 2022?
I've got a couple of major projects that I'm working on. So hopefully there'll be a formal announcement like in a month or two, a week, and then just sort of doing campaigns. I'm working with Lifeline on a campaign at the moment, and I have a series that I'm developing. So a factual series and a comedy series. So so there's a lot going on for me at the moment, and I'm living out here in rural Queensland. So there's always plenty to do out here. A lot of people think that the rural life is a laid back life, you know, but it really isn't. There's a lot going out in the regions.
Of course. And what about if we have your people listening, like young people, or people wanting to kind of do similar work pathway to yourself? What advice would you give them in terms of how would you go about it?
I was just thinking about this today, this morning, about when you're a young fella, you're told, oh gee, you look like so and so, or you sound like so and so. And then, so you're growing up in that, and then you get out of that sort of family circle, and then the dialogue changes and says, oh, you should be a bit more like this, or you should be a bit more like that. And so you take that on, and then you start looking around, and social media is terrible for this. So you look at social media, you look at how well some other people are going, you think, man, I should be doing more, or I should be doing better. What I realized that you got to block all that stuff out. You just got to focus on what you're doing and what's making you happy. Where's the love in what you do? And if storytelling's what you love, then just do it. Just start telling stories. Like, we're in a technical age here at the moment, and we're in a connected age. So there's really nothing stopping people from telling stories, you know.
Absolutely. And using TikTok, I've found so many beautiful stories of our communities through that. And I mean, there is a lot of silly stuff on there, but there's also some really good stuff about people telling their stories and yarning, and it's about finding them and then connecting, and it's a wonderful way. I've met a lot of wonderful people through that, through a 1-minute clip or someone dancing. It's beautiful. And I'd reach out to everyone here, if you have never seen dancing or all that from our communities, go on to something like TikTok. It only goes for a minute or two. It's beautiful, and it's the way, how we can move like different sorts of beings in terms of, I can't explain it in words, but it's really wonderful. And that sort of imagery does sort of help you connect. And if you're wanting to get ideas about, because we need more of this for young people coming up, because we're bombarded with Americanism, we're bombarded with too many Karens and white privileged people. But what we need to have is more positive role models for our young to see, singing, music, dancing, doing art, talking about foods, talking about, the processes of our living, eating on the land, living on the land. It's all of these sorts of things that people can go and do. And there are audiences out there, and just to believe in it. Yes, you'll get detractors, but don't worry, there'll be people that want to connect with you and believe in you and follow that dream. And I love that with you, EJ, is that you're so positive in everything that you do and you take on board. And I guess it's important for us to know too that living out in the remote regions, that the communities are so important. And I guess for a lot of people in regional spaces too, with the health that's going around with COVID, it's important to get safety messages and connect. And the fact that you mentioned Lifeline was so important, because one of the areas that I am concerned with, and quick reach out to people here, if you're not feeling the best, is to reach out to talk, especially for men out there, Indigenous men. Don't feel alone. There are people that will talk and help you. And your partnership with Lifeline, is this something that's just been recent that you've taken on board, or?
Yeah, it's just recent. We're working up. There's a few parties involved. So hopefully, we'll have something to share in the next couple of months.
Wonderful.
When you talk about small communities in connection and role models, every community has their own role models. It always, you can never fail to find somebody or a group of people in small communities or anywhere that are sharing stories, that are supporting people, that are working or even have their own businesses. Like they're role models, they're stars in their own communities, and I think if there's young people listening, just have a look around. Those role models might be on your screen. They might be uncle and auntie who live around the corner, or old mate that lives up the road. Just stop and have a yarn, see what they're about.
And EJ, if people wanted to reach, say, for a young Indigenous person, perhaps living in some remote area of Australia, who somehow finds this way, because this will be on the internet, they want to connect with you, is there a website or something, or an email that people can reach out to you?
I just Google EJ Garrett.
There you go, and we'll put links to this as well. So if you've got ideas, or you think there's a story that really needs to be told, and you want to speak to someone who's, as EJ said, is authentic, there's a lot of volume of his work available that you can look at in TIV. Please do connect with EJ, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to see more of EJ in this year, that we've started up an EJ, you're our first for 2022 First Nation Voices that we've now started up as well, because we realized that it's so important that we do capture the creative souls of our communities, so we can then showcase them to other people. And even academics we need to really cut it back to grassroots to really hear what people are thinking and feeling and tasting, so that people can really understand what it does mean to have an identity of being First Nations, and how it's so important, and enriched culture that's over thousands and thousands of years old, and the message that I get is survival. Whether you're like myself from Stolen Generation or EJ, you know, we're all still one community,
Right.
diverse, and we're all different. But one thing that threads us together is we care for each other, and we love each other, and we love the land. And so through this series, we're going to be hearing more, and we're going to be following EJ in his journey this year to see his developments, and hopefully we'll see big success. And we'll see you at is it the Deadlies? I can't remember if that's.
They used to have the Deadlies.
Oh, is that not on anymore?
I don't think, yeah, unless it's being re-embedded.
I hope they do. I'd love to see someone like this.
I love them.
Well, everyone, well, thanks so much, EJ, for being on our first series for the year, and we hope to see more of you. We'll put all the links up for everyone to follow, and please follow EJ in his social media handles, because the more people follow and exposure and share with your friends, we want to support our communities so that we can get more exposure, so that we can get a sense of continuity and really break through the media spaces in Australia. So thank you everyone for listening.
That would be great. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you.